everyone, I would like to explain about approach. In approach, there are two vectors. The first one is message vector, and the second one is medium vectors. In message vectors, there are three related levels of discourse processing appear to be involved in listening. The first one is proposition identification, second, interpretation of illocutionary reports, and the last one is activation of real-world knowledge to identify proposition. The first one is knowledge of the syntax of the target language enable the listener to chunk incoming discourse into segment constituents. The ability to identify chunk is byproduct of grammatical competence. Real-world knowledge is also used to help identify proposition, enabling listeners to sometimes bypass the constituent identification process. Clark and Clark, 1977, the following process appear to be involved in listening comprehension. First one, the listener takes in raw speech and holds an image of it in short-term memory. The second is, an attempt is made to recognize what was heard in constituent, identifying their content and function. The third, as constituents are identified, they are used to construct proposition, grouping the proposition together to form a coherent message. And the last one is, once the listener has identified and reconstructed the propositional meaning, these are held in a long-term memory. Gris proposed that one source of knowledge listener make us of is their understanding of the nature and goals of conversation. He said this knowledge in the form of maxim of conversational behavior. There are four maxims. The first one is maxim of quantity. Make your contribution just as informative and required. The second one is maxim of quality. Make your contribution one that is true. The third, maxim of relation, be relevant. And the last one is maxim of manner. Avoid obscurity, ambiguity, proximity, and be ordinary. Medium factor. I will explain 9 factors here, each of which influences the work listener must do to process speech. The first one is clausal basic of speech. The unit of organization of written discourse is the sentence. Spoken language is generally delivered one clause at a time. The unit of conversational discourse, not full sentence but clause and long utterance. Then, reduced form. In articulating clauses, speakers are guided by the need to express meaning effectively, mean that words play less crucial role in the message. Consonant and vowel within words are effective by the position in which they occur. Then, ungrammatical form. Because of the effort speakers put into planning and organizing the content of their utterance in ongoing time, grammatically is often less relevant than intentional coherence. Pausing and speech error. An important component of human speech consists of the pauses, hesitation, false starts, and correction. In natural speech, between 30 until 50% of speaking time might consist of pause and hesitation. Rate of delivery. Pausing also affects our perception of the pace of speech. The impression of faster or slower speech generally results from amount on intraclausal pausing that speakers use. Then, rhythm and stress. The rhythmic pattern of spoken English is another of its distinctive features. Length and time required to pronounce and utterance depend upon number of syllables. In English called as stress time. Then, cohesive device. Speech shared with written discourse the mechanism for making grammatical ties within and between sentences. Then, information content. Since conversation involves both speaker and hearer, meaning are constructed cooperatively. Then the last one is interactive. Conversation is interactive. The listener present is indicated by gesture, movement, gaze, and facial expression.
Design. The factor we have just reviewed indicates some of the central process of listening comprehension and way in which spoken discourse differs from written text. The application of such information to the teaching of listening comprehension occurs in the design component of methodology. It enables the identification of component micro-skills that provide the focus for instructional activities. Assessment of learner needs. This refers to procedure aimed at identifying the type of listening skills the learner require according to situation and purposes the listener will encounter. Second, isolation of microskill. From the information obtained from needs analysis and from an analysis of the features of target language discourse that the learner will encounter. Particular listening skills are isolated that correspond to the listening abilities the learner require. Diagnostic testing. A profile is established of the learner present listening abilities. Particular microskills from the skill taxonomy are then selected. Formulation of instructional objective using information from diagnostic or proficiency testing. Instructional objective for a listening comprehension program can be developed. First, the student will have a listening vocabulary of approximately 800 words, including dates, time, and numbers up to 100. The second, the student can recognize the different intonation pattern used for question, statement, and instruction. The third, the student can understand yes or no question and WH question on topic connected with home life, the family, school, free time, health, shopping, and personal identification. The fourth, the student can understand common phrase used in short, conversational, and interview on the above topic. Next, the student can identify the topic of conversation between native speaker and the above topic. Next, the student can understand utterance within an 800-word vocabulary in which the following grammatical construction are used: subject, V, complement, subject V, object. And the last is the student can understand utterance within an 800-word vocabulary containing subordinate and coordinating clauses.
Hi everyone! Now I'd like to explain about procedure. In examining procedures for teaching listening comprehension, we will focus on some general criteria that can be applied to the evaluation of exercises and classroom procedures, and then look at techniques and procedures themselves. These are criteria for evaluating activities and exercises. The first is content validity. Many listening materials contain activities that depend more on reading or the general intelligence than on listening skills. The question of content validity raises the issue of whether the activity adequately or actually makes use of skills and behavior that are part of listening in the real world. The second, listening comprehension or memory. Many listening activities focus on retrieval information from long-term memory rather than on processing activities themselves. An exercise involving listening to a passage and responding to true-false questions about the content of it typically makes use of memory rather than comprehension. The third, purposefulness and transferability. An activity that makes use of new broadcasts as input, for example, should reflect the reasons why typically listen to news broadcasts, such as listening for information about events. Close exercises requiring the learner to supply grammatical words after listening to the news item do not reflect the purposes for which people listen to news broadcasts. The fourth is testing or teaching. Thus, the activity or set procedures assume that a set of skills is already acquired and simply provide opportunities for the learner to practice them, or does it assume that the skills are not known and try to help the learner acquire them? The amount of preparation the learner is given before listening task is often important in giving a teaching rather than a testing focus to an activity. The fifth is authenticity. Although much authentic discourse may be too disciplined or difficult to understand without contextual support, materials should aim for relative authenticity if they are to prepare listeners for real listening situations. There are tasks for selecting and evaluating, such as matching and distinguishing, transferring, transcribing, scanning, extending, condensing, answering, and predicting. Thank you for your attention. Hopefully this is useful for you.
Bye-bye.